Part 1. The Ultimatum. I kicked my mother-in-law, Deborah, out of the house in front of my husband, Mark. It wasn't a proud moment, believe me. I'm not a naturally confrontational person. I prefer calm discussions, logical arguments, a gentle nudge towards a mutually agreeable solution. But Deborah, she operated on a different wavelength, a frequency of subtle digs, backhanded compliments, and an almost pathological need to be in control. I'd pictured my life with Mark so differently when we got married 2 years ago. A cozy home filled with laughter and love, maybe a couple of kids running around someday, the occasional awkward family dinner that we could both laugh about later. What I hadn't pictured was Deborah, turning our little slice of suburban bliss into her own personal fiefdom. She'd bulldozed her way into our lives like a Category 5 hurricane, leaving a trail of passive-aggressive comments, unsolicited advice on everything from my cooking to my career choices, and a general aura of chaos and disapproval in her wake. She'd been temporarily staying with us for 3 months after her condo flooded due to a burst pipe, a situation I initially sympathized with. I genuinely felt bad for her, offered her our guest room without hesitation, and even helped her navigate the insurance claims. But temporary turned into permanent awfully fast, with Deborah subtly unpacking her entire wardrobe, rearranging our furniture to her liking, and taking over the kitchen like she was auditioning for her own cooking show. The tension in our little suburban bungalow had become thicker than peanut butter, spreading slowly but surely until it coated everything, sticking to the walls, the furniture, our conversations. Mark, bless his heart, was either blissfully oblivious to the growing discord or maybe just choosing to be. He'd just chuckle, chalking it up to motherly love and saying things like, "Oh, mom's just being mom," or "She means well, Tiffany, you know that." I wanted to scream. Motherly love didn't involve criticizing my perfectly respectable marketing job, constantly suggesting I needed to spice things up for Mark, or leaving snide little notes about my housekeeping skills. Well, I was about to deliver a whole lot of tough love, and someone needed to go. And it wasn't going to be me. No. The line had been crossed. The final straw had been this morning, a seemingly innocuous event that had finally cracked my carefully constructed composure and pushed me past my breaking point, leading to a confrontation I never thought I was capable of. Part 2, the last straw. The morning had started innocently enough, at least in my mind. I'd woken up early, a sliver of dawn peeking through the blinds, eager to try a new recipe for blueberry pancakes I'd found online. Cooking was my stress relief, my creative outlet, my happy place in an otherwise increasingly stressful existence. I loved the methodical process of measuring ingredients, the satisfying sizzle of batter on a hot griddle, the sweet aroma that filled the air. I padded barefoot into the kitchen, anticipation bubbling inside me. I envisioned a quiet, peaceful morning, a delicious breakfast shared with Mark before he left for work, a small moment of connection before the day descended into its usual chaos. But when I entered the kitchen, I found Deborah already there, her back to me, rummaging through my pantry with a determined focus that bordered on obsessive. She was wearing one of my old floral aprons, which she had mysteriously unearthed from the back of a drawer and claimed as her own. "Oh, darling, I'm so glad you're up," she chirped, turning around with a forced cheerfulness that grated on my nerves. Her voice dripped with fake sweetness, like honey laced with poison. "I thought I'd be a dear and make breakfast. You know, something healthier." She held up a box of some bland, flavorless cereal that looked like it belonged in a health food store, or maybe in a rabbit's cage. It was pale, beige, and utterly devoid of any visual appeal. The box was labeled Fiber Plus Flakes, the name as exciting as the food inside. My carefully curated pantry, my sanctuary of culinary delights, my meticulously organized collection of spices, flours, and gourmet ingredients had been invaded. I felt a surge of possessiveness, a primal need to protect my space, my creations, my identity. Then she gestured dismissively towards the counter, where I'd carefully set out a bowl of perfectly ripe blueberries, plump and bursting with juicy sweetness. I had even bought them at the farmer's market yesterday. They had the perfect shade of dark purple. "Those won't do, dear," she said, wrinkling her nose as if the mere sight of them offended her. "Too much sugar. You know, Mark needs to watch his weight. I threw them out for you." She tossed the entire bowl of my fresh, beautiful blueberries into the garbage can, the sound of the plastic lid slamming shut echoing through the kitchen like a death knell. That was it. That was the moment. The blueberries, the apron, the condescending tone, the constant interference, it all coalesced into a single, blinding flash of anger. Something inside me snapped, a fragile thread finally breaking under the weight of months of suppressed resentment. My voice, though quiet, was firm. "You know what, Deborah? Pack your bags. You're leaving. No. I am putting my foot down." This wasn't a suggestion. It was an ultimatum. Part 3, the showdown. Deborah's smile faltered, the practiced facade of sweet, doting mother-in-law cracking to reveal the steely core beneath. Her eyes narrowed, her lips tightened, and the air around her crackled with barely suppressed rage. "Excuse me," she sputtered, her voice rising in pitch, transforming from a gentle chirp into a sharp, piercing screech. "You can't be serious, Tiffany. Where am I supposed to go? I have nowhere else to go." She was laying it on thick, playing the victim card for all it was worth. The dramatic performance would have been almost comical if I wasn't so furious. I crossed my arms, my resolve hardening like steel. The quiet simmer had finally boiled over, and there was no going back. "That's not my problem, Deborah," I said, my voice low and steady, but laced with a steely determination. "This is my house, my kitchen, my life, and I'm done. I'm done with the criticism, the interference, the subtle put-downs. I've had it. You overstepped. You invaded my life. I want you out. Now. Today. This minute." The kitchen felt small, cramped, the air thick with unspoken resentment and simmering anger. The ticking of the clock on the wall seemed to amplify the tension, each second a countdown to the inevitable explosion. Just then, as if on cue, Mark walked into the kitchen, yawning and stretching, his hair tousled, his eyes still glazed with sleep. He was completely oblivious to the simmering volcano about to erupt in his carefully constructed world. The timing was either incredibly unfortunate or perfectly calculated on Deborah's part, a strategic move in her ongoing game of manipulation. He stopped short, his eyes widening as he took in the scene before him. He scanned the room, taking in my rigid posture, Deborah's flushed face, the discarded bowl of blueberries in the trash can. The tension in the air was so thick you could cut it with a knife. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice filled with confusion and a hint of annoyance at being awakened by domestic drama. "Why are you two fighting?" Deborah seized the opportunity, her eyes welling up with crocodile tears, her voice trembling with manufactured emotion. "Mark, darling," she wailed, clutching her chest dramatically. "Your wife is kicking me out. After everything I've done for you. After I helped raise you, after I cooked, cleaned, everything. She's trying to kick me to the curb." The act was almost convincing, the practiced grief of a seasoned performer. "I don't have anywhere to go." Mark looked over at me, his brow furrowed, his expression a mixture of disbelief and disappointment, as if I were the one acting irrationally, as if I were the one disrupting the peace. His eyes said it all. "Why can't you just get along with my mother? Why do you have to make things so difficult?" The calm before the storm. Part 4, the revelation. Mark looked at me with genuine disbelief, his eyes wide with shock and a distinct flicker of betrayal. "Tiffany, I can't believe you're being so disrespectful to my mother," he said, his voice rising slightly, a hint of anger creeping into his tone. "She's family. She's been through a lot lately. Can't you just be a little more understanding?" Deborah, sensing the tide turning in her favor, began fake crying harder, dabbing at her eyes with a crumpled tissue. The sniffles, the sobs, the mournful sighs. It was a carefully orchestrated performance designed to tug at Mark's heartstrings and paint me as the villain. "Mark, please don't let her do this to me," she sobbed, her voice cracking with false emotion. "I don't have anyone else. You're all I have." "Mark, you need to choose," I said, my voice surprisingly calm, despite the turmoil raging within me. The adrenaline was pumping, sharpening my senses, clarifying my thoughts. "Hear me. And it is time that you had a backbone to deal with your mother. She needs help, and it isn't my responsibility." This was a test, a line in the sand. I needed to know where his loyalties lay, who he truly valued, and what he was willing to sacrifice to protect our marriage. Deborah, realizing that her carefully constructed narrative was starting to unravel, began yelling, her voice shrill and desperate. "Mark, she is trying to break up our family. She's jealous of our relationship. Please, son, you can't let her do this to us. She's ruining everything." The desperate pleas were flying. So then my husband made a choice. He turned to me, his face etched with a mixture of confusion, frustration, and a heartbreaking lack of support. "Tiffany, you need to calm down and apologize to my mother," he said, his voice flat, devoid of any warmth or affection. "You're being unreasonable. You're overreacting." The realization hit me like a ton of bricks, a crushing weight that stole my breath and sent a wave of nausea washing over me. It wasn't just about Deborah's overbearing presence, her manipulative tactics, her constant interference. It was about Mark's inability to stand up to her, his unwillingness to prioritize our marriage, his complete lack of understanding of the sacrifices I had made. Mark looked at me like I was the crazy one. The game had been rigged from the start. This was a long con, a carefully orchestrated plan to get me out of their lives, to reclaim Mark for Deborah, to restore the natural order of things in their twisted, dysfunctional world. I saw the triumph in Deborah's eyes, the smug satisfaction, the knowing smirk that she couldn't quite suppress. This had been her plan all along, to drive a wedge between Mark and me, to undermine my confidence, to push me to the brink. But what they didn't know, what they had completely underestimated, was my capacity for resilience, my ability to adapt, my willingness to fight back when pushed too far. A slow smile spread across my face, a smile that started in my eyes and gradually transformed my entire expression. "Mark," I said softly, my voice dangerously calm, my eyes twinkling with a newfound determination. "Deborah," I paused, letting the silence hang in the air, savoring the look of confusion and apprehension on their faces. "You see, the joke's on you." I continued to smile, revealing my plan. I had been faking being unhappy to get out of their lives. So then, Part 5, The Trap. I continued, my voice ringing with newfound confidence, the air around me crackling with controlled power. "You see, Mark, I knew Deborah was causing you to act differently, to be distant with me, to subtly undermine our marriage. I'm not blind. You think I didn't notice the late-night phone calls, the hushed whispers, the secretive glances?" I took a step closer, my eyes locking with Mark's, my gaze unwavering. "I hired a private investigator a couple of months back. I know about the money you've been taking out of our joint account, the substantial sums you've been funneling into that offshore account you secretly set up. And I know about the new house you and Mommy were planning to buy together after you so conveniently divorced me." Mark was stunned, his face drained of color, his jaw slack with disbelief. He was speechless, completely blindsided by the revelation. The carefully constructed facade of innocent ignorance had crumbled, exposing the scheming, manipulative man beneath. Deborah tried to interrupt, to regain control of the situation, but I wasn't finished. "And Deborah," I said, turning my attention to her, my voice dripping with icy contempt, "I also know about the agreement with Mark's father, the one about the company's shares. Mark was supposed to be the heir to those shares if he maintained a stable marriage for 5 years. And you, my dear mother-in-law, were going to use this opportunity to make sure Mark inherited the shares, securing your financial future at my expense. That's why you were so intent on getting rid of me before the 5-year mark." The game was over. The secrets were out. The carefully laid plans had been exposed, leaving Mark and Deborah standing naked and vulnerable, stripped of their power and their deceit. I then turned to both of them, my voice calm but firm, my gaze filled with unwavering resolve. "I want both of you out of my house now. Pack your belongings and get out. And Mark, don't forget to say goodbye to your precious company shares, which, as you well know, will now be mine because you so conveniently breached the terms of our prenuptial agreement. I think I want a divorce." Their faces turned white, their bodies visibly trembling, the weight of their failed scheme crushing them. The victory was sweet, the vindication complete. I didn't say another word, didn't offer any explanation, didn't give them a single ounce of sympathy. I simply turned and walked away, leaving them standing in the wreckage of their carefully constructed lies. As I walked away, I handed them both black trash bags. I watched as they awkwardly gathered their belongings, stuffing their clothes, their toiletries, their carefully curated possessions into the black plastic bags, their faces etched with shame and defeat. They packed like the trash they are. They left, never to be seen again. Mark can figure out how to support his mommy. After that day, I hired a new CFO, someone I could actually trust, and a skilled therapist to help me process the betrayal and rebuild my life. I also took up kickboxing, a surprisingly effective way to release pent-up anger and frustration. Life was better than ever without those two. The house felt lighter, brighter, filled with a newfound sense of peace and freedom. I had reclaimed my life, my independence, my happiness. I was the only one in control now, and I was determined to never let anyone else take that away from me again. I was alone, but at peace.